Eric Weinstein is a unicorn. After earning a PhD in mathematical physics from Harvard in 1992, he left academia and started to pursue his own theory. After lurking beneath the radar for decades, in 2013 he shocked the scientific world, presenting his proposed theory of everything called geometric unity at Oxford. Superficially, this seems like a similar story to a guy we talked about last episode, Chris Langan, who made a theory too bold and original for academia, and they both had to go it on their own, bypassing the academic world of publish and perish to develop their own original insights on science and reality. But upon further examination, let's think about whether geometric unity holds water against these other theories. Although geometric unity is an impressive theory, it cannot be correct because it confines its theorization to the physical world rather than reality as a whole. Weinstein is thus locked into the same mindset that has stalled progress in physics for the past century: physicalism, materialism, and naturalism, to the exclusion of anything deeper. It says that there is nothing outside of the physical and mathematical universe, and thus no room for the self-construction and self-organization of reality. Geometric unity has the correct ambitions as a fundamental theory. Theorists of fundamental physics should be searching for a theory of everything, a grand unified theory that shows that the laws of nature are coherent with one another. We don't have 2 or 3 reality theories that are meant to explain everything. We're meant to have one, because there is one truth, and therefore there should be one theory that extends over all of those other ways of thinking about the world. And so all theories of everything seek this grand unification, and often it seems like they're just looking for reality to be pleasing and simple. And they're criticized for not addressing real-world problems within existing models. And this is not just true with sort of fringe academic theories like geometric unity, it's also true of mainstream physics theories like M-theory and string theory, which both don't make testable predictions with our current scientific methods. They say, oh, there's 11 dimensions and the mathematics works out, but we can't actually prove them yet. And so the criticism that geometric unity is not rigorous or doesn't make falsifiable specific predictions cannot necessarily be held against Weinstein. And in fact, geometric unity predicts the existence of 250 plus original particles that could be detected at high energy. And Weinstein has presented this work quite clearly. Further, critics say that the mathematical symmetries, which basically means patterns which repeat themselves across scales, only exist in this 14-dimensional obserververse that Weinstein came up with, but they don't scale to the dimensions observed in nature, namely the 3 dimensions of space and the 1 dimension of time. And so this is partly true. The examples of mathematical symmetries in Weinstein's 14-dimensional obserververse do not appear in what he calls the 4D filament of the physical space-time universe that we exist within. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. The mathematics works, and novel theories are often dismissed even when they have value. So I agree with Weinstein that theories of everything are the proper goal of fundamental physics, and I laud him for putting forth this bold and original attempt to come up with one. And major progress has stalled in the last century among physics theorists because not enough people are willing to put forth their ideas regarding the fundamental nature of physical reality. Academia values incremental progress over revolutionary ideas, and it rewards safe research through this publish or perish guideline, where basically you have to continue churning out papers regardless of whether they're making any original content in order to hold your weight in academia. Imagine 2 scientists. One of them comes up with one profound and original idea that turns out to be the ultimate theory of reality. They are never going to get as much credit as someone who's just churning out this low quality research every year, because they will be cited by other academics, and it's all basically a massive circle jerk because their credit is based on whether they get cited by other people. So you're encouraged to make these marginal breakthroughs in science, and that is this like tiny inching ahead has totally destroyed the spirit of science from these pioneers 100 years ago who were completely challenging the foundations of how we think about reality with quantum physics and relativity. Academia is now locked into dogmatism and this ideological adherence to science, and that they will be reviewed and judged by their peers. That creates a pressure to conform. And I applaud Weinstein for stepping out of that system and going out on his own, and then coming back with this very interesting theory of reality. So what is geometric unity? Geometric unity is a theory of reality that says that the universe is a 14-dimensional manifold, which basically means a 14-dimensional mathematical space, 4 dimensions of which are your classic space-time, with 10 additional dimensions. And so our 4D space-time is just a filament. It's just a tiny little thread in the broader 14-dimensional space. And according to geometric unity, both the content and medium of space-time are generated from a single origin. So Weinstein's PhD thesis was about generalizing the self-dual Yang-Mills equations to the eighth dimension. So he's basically, what he's thinking about is that if you include all of these additional dimensions, there is the structure such that reality could construct itself ex nihilo, out of nothing, and it can basically bring about its own emergence, not just in its medium, but in its content. So everything within reality is also self-generative. And the mathematical objects in the 14-dimensional world that allows for the universe's self-generation out of nothingness are reflected in the laws and structure of the 4D observable universe. So manifolds are the basis for space-time, which consists of these spinners which capture the intrinsic twist in the fabric of space-time within this filament that are indicative of this broader structure that the universe and reality constructs itself through. The universe is created from these spinners, which are basically these very, very small objects which create the granular structure of the particles we observe. These are objects that are embedded within higher dimensions, of which, when you have an finite amount of them, it allows for this self-organization of the universe. And when you put them all together when you put all these spinners together in a mathematical space, they create a manifold. They create particles, and they are basically the fundamental stuff of reality. They're embedded within higher dimensions, but they represent and extend themselves in physical space. So geometric unity attempts to induce the mathematical formalisms of the standard model, as well as quantum theories of physics, directly from the 14-dimensional manifold. So it's essentially a mathematical theory of everything. It creates this space of discourse, this 14-dimensional obserververse that is based on mathematics, and then it works backwards to induce the current equations that we have of relativity and quantum physics. But not only does this obserververse need to be a joint medium for space and time, it also needs to be self-generative. Weinstein compares it to the famous picture of a hand that draws itself, or a fire that lights itself. The canvas of space-time generates the particles and fields within it, just as the fields and particles within reality are responsible for the generation of the space-time manifold. The contents of space-time in physical systems are induced from the evolution of the manifold itself. So all properties, processes, and relations of the self-generating universe are produced internally to space-time, and there is a simultaneous origin of space-time and particles in the 14-dimensional structure. And so this all sounds well and good. It seems like Weinstein is putting forth a really serious academic challenge to how we think about the generation and construction of reality, as he has this mathematical space in which we could jointly embed quantum theory and relativity, and it accounts for the self-generation of the universe, a challenge which has never really been overcome in fundamental physics. But the problem is, Weinstein is still operating within a standard mathematical space that is dualistic. He separates the contents of the universe from his mathematical construction. And he doesn't understand the CTMU self-generative conspansive manifold, which has a coupling of form and content just as his does. But geometric unity uses the equivalent of magic glue to fuse form and content, whereas the CTMU actually goes deep into how these two domains of reality relate to one another. As we talked about in our last video, there is a non-terminal domain of infinite expansive potential which programs the physical display of the universe in order to bring about its own self-organization and emergence according to its self-will for identification and self-perception. Weinstein kind of has an aversion to this level of metaphysical reasoning. He laments those who write God into quantum mechanics. But leaving aside any traditional theological notion, you have to wrestle with these deep problems in order to think about fundamental theories of reality. What is the purpose? If the universe is self-generative, why does the universe generate itself? How does the universe generate itself? And that's never going to work when you're confined to the physical semi-model of reality, which doesn't include this design and potential from which the origin of the universe in both its form and content emerges. Even though his thesis was on self-duality, he is separating form and content in his theory, and there's no room for telic recursion, for the universe to use its own intelligence and will to organize itself, or self-originative meta-causation. There's no room for the universe to actually emerge from this space of potential. As Weinstein kind of describes, the conspansive manifold, not the 14-dimensional obserververse, is the only valid mathematical construction that includes itself as its own origin, that is self-descriptive. It is a mathematical space which is equivalent to the universe as it evolved. So it is literally generating itself from its origin every moment, and there is a syntax, there are rules and structure that it gives to every part of reality that allow it to cohere with itself. Geometric Unity has like a really low resolution version of this. This is like 8-bit, like those like old like Mario Kart games. But if you want a really detailed picture of reality, it's not sufficient because it doesn't answer these fundamental questions, even though it is saying it is a theory of everything. In the CTMU, gravity arises as a property of the conspansive manifold. The conspansive manifold determines through its own intelligence and will that the best way to construct the physical universe is one in which massive bodies attract one another. But the way that they attract one another is not through them curving space-time, but through the conspansive manifold curving space-time according to how the mass is distributed in the universe. And that is a subtle difference, but it says that gravity arises as a direct property of the deep structure of reality rather than as a gradient of a classical force as it is in classical mechanics, or through direct curvature of spacetime as it is in relativity. Curvature does not cause gravity, the conspansive manifold causes them both. And so the metaphysical dynamics of the conspansive manifold then become the physical dynamics of the universe. But it first has to be filtered through this mathematical space of the self-representation of the universe. And so the reason why all these theories of reality, whether it's geometric unity or Eric Weinstein's fundamental physics project, or whether it's string theory or M theory, or whatever your preferred flavor of these physical theories are, none of them are going to work because they don't address and explain this deep metaphysical structure of reality. Just as we would never start doing physics without the work of Newton or Einstein as our guide, we shouldn't do metaphysics without the work of Christopher Langan, because the CTMU is the most complete and advanced metaphysical theory of reality, and he has created a subset of that theory that can work to explain the fundamental equations of physics. We'll go into this deeper in another video, but basically the conspansive manifold is a joint medium for quantum mechanics and relativity. When the manifold, which is the mathematical construction of the universe, is behaving in a relativistic way, that is because we're at this large-scale structure of space-time where reality is organizing and bending around itself in order to evolve and work within this relativistic space, whereas the open top structure of the conspansive manifold has these little excitations of the field, which is what we're observing when we see these participatory dynamics within quantum mechanics. The conspansive manifold does not dualistically separate man from his environment, but it actually says that we are producing choices for our environment at the quantum and the quantum level and the level of teleology, at the level of the purpose and end of the universe has to be completely self-contained and self-generating. It creates itself basically at every moment. It has to generate from this origin point, and it has that structure embedded within every part and aspect of reality. The CTMU deals with all of these nuances of reality theory in a way that physical theories of everything, even if they seem promising, only get like a really low resolution version of. Although Weinstein seems to understand certain basic elements of the CTMU reality, he's technically locked into the same mindset of physical materialism that has stalled progress in physics for the last century. And the CTMU overcomes that metaphysical naturalism, which, contrary to its name, says that there is nothing metaphysical about reality. There is no purpose or intention or deep structure within the universe. It's all physical. That's not really possible. So although geometric unity is a very impressive theory, it cannot be correct because it confines its theorization to the physical world rather than reality as a whole. So although geometric unity has the correct ambitions in achieving a fundamental theory of physics and going against academic orthodoxy, it nevertheless has certain challenges which are associated with its mathematical construction. Namely, that even though Weinstein posits this 14-dimensional obserververse that is self-originating and generates form and content together from its origin, it doesn't actually explain the metaphysical dynamics of how this happens outside of this constructed mathematical space, which is dualistically separated from reality. Rather, the conspansive manifold, which is intrinsically connected with the evolution and self-organization of reality, presents a better way of thinking about the universe's self-description, self-containment, and self-generation, in that the self-origin of the universe is truly distributed within every part and aspect of reality as a rule book, is that the universe teaches itself and learns how to create a physical universe, and it actually has purpose and intention in doing so. So the CTMU is superior to geometric unity in overcoming the challenges posed by fundamental physics, because the conspansive manifold better accounts for the structure and dynamics of a self-generative universe than Weinstein's 14-dimensional obserververse. If you're interested in learning more about the CTMU, we'd love to have you at Compatriot Academy, which is a non-profit online educational platform that I created that has 10 plus courses on every aspect of the CTMU. We have a course called Redefining Reality, which teaches you all about how the CTMU updates the modern scientific perspective on the world. We have a course called the CTMU, A New Kind of Reality Theory, which will take you from 0 to 100 in CTMU understanding, just like that. And we truly have all of the materials to get you to being fluent in this foundational language of reality. Because the CTMU is not just an enormous breakthrough in philosophy and physics, it is a growing movement, and every growing movement needs supporters, proselytes, and promoters, and people who really put their nose to the grindstone to become fluent. And the Compatriot Academy has all of the resources you'll need to get to the level of understanding that you desire. Let the light shine forth in the darkness. May the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you. Like and subscribe. Peace.